once again to this press conference for Where to Invade Next. Welcome all three of you.
Thank you very much.
Very quick introduction to our three guests, starting at the end. Carl Deal is the producer of Where to Invade Next. Among his many TV and cinema credits, Carl was the co-producer of Michael Moore's Capitalism, A Love Story, and archival producer of Fahrenheit 9/11. Next along, Rod Burleson is the film's executive producer, and those of you who've seen it will recognise him from the film as well. Rod was co-producer also on Capitalism, Love Story, and a producer on Sicko as well. Michael Moore, as you all know, is the director of Where to Invade Next, documentary filmmaker whose films include Roger and Me, Bowling for Columbine, Fahrenheit 9/11, Sicko, and Capitalism, A Love Story. Welcome. Thank you all three of you for very enlightening, playful, and in its own way, I think, disturbing film as well. I mean, thanks all three of you. A few questions from me before we open up to our guests here. Question to all of you. I mean, this film was shot largely around Europe, as we'll have seen. But Michael, would you agree that it's a film about America and for Americans?
Are we still in Europe, by the way, right now? Where we're sitting?
We are, technically.
We are technically still,
yeah,
right? Okay.
Which I think we should probably get onto at some point.
All right. No, I just want to know where I am. It's okay.
Would you agree, as much as any of your previous films, it's a film about America and for Americans? I mean, by telling us all the great things that French, Italians, Norwegians, Finns, and others have or do. I mean, the underlying reminder always seems to be that what Americans don't have or don't do. And did you decide that it was a more constructive, more effective, and maybe more playful way to say that and to discuss that?
Well, I've spent over 25 years pointing out everything that's wrong with the United States. And I not only not have to point it out any longer to my fellow Americans, most Americans, the majority at least, get it. Most Americans by now know that the rich have gotten a lot richer. Everybody else is working harder and longer for less pay, less benefits, not much time off. And so to make another film, and I said this at the end of Capitalism, A Love Story, at the end of my last film, I said, I've said pretty much what I want to say here. I'm not going to keep making these issue films because the issues, or what's wrong, has at its core an economic system that's unjust, it's unfair, and it's not democratic. And until that changes, I could make these films till the cows come home. Is that an expression here?
Yes.
You still have cows,
yes.
Even after the mad business. Okay. All right. Sorry. I didn't know if it was a sensitive thing to talk about the cows coming home and people like, no more cows. I don't want them in my house. But I also think while we were here, while we were making the film, here meaning Europe, because I'm still going to refer to the UK as Europe. While we were making this film, though, we thought that Europeans would also love this movie because it's a reminder to you of the good things that you have. And to take a look at yourselves through the outsider's eyes. Yes, I know the problems. Yes, there's a lot of in all these countries, including yours. But still, you came up with the idea of a national health service. No other country has this. And yeah, okay, so there's some problems. Fix them. Quit whining. Fix them. But to actually start to have a discussion about taking out a pair of scissors and cutting it up, and trying to create, as you already have in previous years, a two-tier system where those who have a little more money can get a little better care now. That wasn't the original idea. Because if everybody has to have the same services, that won't, like in Finland, why they don't allow private schools. I mean, there are some, but it's illegal to charge tuition in Finland. So everybody's got to go to a public school, what we call a public school. And that makes so that the rich, those who have money, have to make sure those schools are damn good. They can't just pull their kids out and send them to a better school. I said to the head of the Ministry of Education in Finland, so you don't have a Harvard, you don't have an Oxford, or Cambridge, sorry, no offense. And she goes, we have 19 Harvards and 19 Oxfords. And I said, what do you mean by that? Because every one of our universities has the same standards And I thought, wow, what an interesting idea. That every child should have the same shot, at least. Not everybody will do as well as everybody else. We're human beings, but so I think especially for Brits, this film can act as a reminder as to why you have done some things that are really good, and we, for the life of us, don't understand why you want to be more like us. And we love ourselves, and we love being Americans. But seriously, we look to you and think, geez, it must be nice to be able to send your kids to school every day and not have to think that they're going to be mowed down in a hail of bullets.
And yet Brits watching the film might ask themselves why you don't come to the UK with this film. I was wondering whether you felt now, under the current government, was not the right time to hold up the UK as a great example.
It was a conscious and purposeful decision to not come to the UK, with all due respect.
And why?
We wanted to go to countries where we thought we could learn something. And we didn't, and I mean this with respect, we didn't feel that there was anything left to learn here. And that you had given up on yourselves to such a degree. The fact that you would want to put your 18 to 22-year-olds into debt simply because they want to go to university, that you would start charging like this, like you have, that's just one example. But why would you do this? Plus, I think, and they can answer for themselves, but I think for us, the filmmakers, you may be over Tony Blair. I don't know. We're not. And I'll tell you why. Because we expected George W. Bush to start that war. That wasn't a surprise. Nobody was surprised that Bush did that. He was able to do it because you, the Brits, under Tony Blair, gave him the cover. You made it possible for him to say, hey, it's not just me. We got Tony Blair here. And in the U.S., he had the New York Times. He had liberal media. He was able to get liberals to act as the cover for what he was going to do. And honestly, if Blair hadn't supported that war and the so-called liberal media that got behind it at first, I don't know if he could have pulled it off. I don't know if he could have pulled it off. So I think that we're not quite over the damage that this country has done to us and to the world by so-called liberals here voting and then re-voting for an individual who was anything but a liberal. So to come here and say, hey, let's go to the UK and see what we Americans can learn from them. It's like, no, this is a toxic place. This is a place that wants to put young adults in debt. This is a place that wants to create a two-tier medical system. This is a place that has now elected this conservative government and now wants to leave the European Union. Yeah. What's going? It's like we're so. But because we're we're Americans, so we're kind-hearted, and we love Britain, and we love the British accent, and we love Downton Abbey, and we love all this stuff. So we're like, well, there's got to be something good, right? And we found something that we liked about England. There apparently, your education system here a number of years ago, people started to get worried that your kids were starting to look like our kids, like as in overweight and not eating the right food. So now I think, 12 and 13-year-olds have to take cooking class in school. They've made this a big push in British, or at least English schools. And we thought, well, that's a good idea, but not enough to spend the money to come here. So I hope I'm not sounding offensive by saying this. I just it's a plea for you to be Britain.
But one final question.
What we know of what the greatness that you've done and the good ideas that you've come up with, and that.
Going to open up to questions now, but one final question for you before we do that. You've alluded to the Brexit debate several times there. And you're releasing this film in the UK in the fortnight running up to the referendum. Do you hope it has a role to play within that debate?
No, I don't think it's my role to have any say in this whatsoever because I'm not British. So it would be not right for me to tell you what I think you should do. He said just before he told them what to do. No. No, but I will say this. It does, from the outside, look strange. You know, I mean, first of all, we can't vote to leave North America. So how do you leave Europe? I know you're not leaving Europe, you're leaving the European Union. But that's like Texas voting to leave the United States.
There's a first question there. If I could get the microphone there, then there's another one there on the end, and then I'll come to you.
I just want to point out, too, Carl is an Oscar nominee. He and his producing partner, Tia Lesson, made the Katrina documentary, Trouble the Water. I just wanted to give him his props for that.
Hello, Michael. I'm Maísa Monção. I'm Brazilian, and I watched your movie in the premiere in Toronto, so it's been a long time since I went to talk to you. So I don't know if you're aware of Brazil politics right now, but we suffered...
Mosquitoes, that's all we know.
We suffered a coup d'etat.
Our news is all about being afraid.
About a month ago, so I'm afraid I have to read. It's very quick. So it is clear that the executive branch of the U.S. government favored the coup, as some of our politicians now in power demonstrated their loyalty to Washington. My question is, do you think that U.S. still support non-left governments in Latin America? And do Americans want to invade Brazil next?
Well, Americans never think about Brazil other than at carnival time, and they'll run 10 seconds of footage of you in some incredible swimwear. That's about all we ever hear about Brazil. I know it sounds like I'm being funny, but if you know anything about us or our media, know that we don't have international news. We don't know. I mean, seriously, if I walk down the street in any American city right now and said Brexit, absolutely, I'm convinced, right? Who would know what the hell I am talking about, right? So most Americans don't even know that this vote is happening. So what's going on in Brazil, we've been told to be afraid of the mosquitoes that are going to give our babies small heads, and that's about it. And then every now and then they'll interview an Olympic athlete and ask them if they're going to go to the Olympics. Does the American government support left-wing governments in Latin America? Of course it doesn't. It never has. In fact, our history is to overthrow left-wing governments in Latin America. So I'm just stating the obvious, sir.
Thank you. There's a question there. It's 3 rows back, please. Yes, give the microphone to you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Michael. It's Charlie Girling from LBC in London. Given the current meteoric rise of Donald Trump, your title of your film could sound quite scarily prophetic. What are you going to do if he is elected this autumn? Are you going to move to Canada, perhaps?
Well, the Canadians know that millions of Americans will want to move there, so I think they're starting to strengthen their immigration laws to prevent us from leaving, make us stay and deal with our problem. Which is weird. It took us an hour and a half to get through Heathrow last night, the long line, and we just looked at that EU line, and there's like nobody in it, and everybody's just going, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I just thought, yeah, okay, if they vote to leave the European Union, they're going to come back and stand in this hour and a half line in 27 countries. So maybe after standing in that line, for a few years, maybe people will want to come back into having that quick access. I forgot your question. Trump.
Your reaction.
Of course,
if he
I
wins
forgot
the
it.
presidency.
I think there's an excellent chance of Donald Trump becoming the next president of the United States. People need to take that very seriously. I said last August he would be the Republican nominee. He knows something. He knows how to manipulate a dumbed-down population, a population whose schools have been wrecked, whose media is just insipid and stupid and doesn't give people the facts about what's going on. So the public is easily manipulated by somebody like him, those who vote for him. He had record turnouts. He has the largest rallies. He supports a 21st century version of fascism, of marrying the state and capital together to benefit the few at the expense of the many, and in the process blame the other The other is causing your problems. Let's build a wall. Let's ban Muslims. I don't believe the majority of Americans agree with him. But it's going to be about who shows up to vote. That's your problem, too, in a week and a half, right? Because I'm guessing the majority of Brits probably don't want to leave the European Union. But on Election Day, on Saturday, on a special election, who's going to be out there? The haters. Sadly, it will motivate more people to get out of bed on that Saturday morning to vote. So we're going to have the same problem. The haters will all be there voting on Election Day. And, you know, whether people will be enthusiastic about voting for Hillary Clinton, they're going to be more enthusiastic about voting for not Trump. In fact, if Hillary were to go to the courthouse today and just change her name to not Trump, and so when you go in the voting booth, it just says Trump, not Trump, then I think we're okay. but I would take this very seriously. And I'm a person in the past. Could I just do an impersonation of myself at 25 years old? All right, this not an actor, but this is kind of what it looks like or looked like. There's no way this country is going to elect an actor to be president. A B film actor whose main co-star was a chimpanzee. There's no way this is going to happen. That's me at 25. Here's me at 45. There's no way this country is going to vote for George W. Bush. There's no way. Did you see him in the first debate? He was asked, who's the president of Pakistan? And his answer was, General is his name. Okay, and we're like, he'll never be president. Okay, now, older and wiser, I'm well aware that my fellow Americans could elect Donald Trump as president of the United States, and millions are concerned about that. The good news is the math. 80% of the people voting in November are either women, people of color, or young adults between the ages of 18 and 35. That's 80% of the electorate. He has done a massive job in pissing off all three of those groups. He is not going to win a majority of women. He is not going to win a majority of blacks and Hispanics. He's not going to win a majority of young people. So if people show up to vote, no problem. But that's the problem.
Thank you. Must keep getting more questions in. If I can,
Yeah, I'll give shorter answers. I'm sorry.
Is the question there on the end of the row? Then I'll come over to you there. Thanks.